we're going to talk about ways we can support our asset limited, income constrained employed individuals. Okay. The acronym again for that is ALICE. So I'm going to break it down a little bit because I realized that as I was putting this presentation together, this webinar together, I was like, well, I don't want to assume that everyone understands all this terminology that we kind of like are intimately acquainted with because we hear it on such a regular basis. So, asset limited is basically referring to individuals that are not putting enough or any money aside at the end of every paycheck towards saving. So there's no financial cushion to face an emergency saving or a financial an emergency event or a financial shock, like my car needs repairs or something broke down in my house and I need to, have something. It usually leads to now I have to rely on a credit card or some other type of debt to face that. Income constraints. So these are individuals that are employed but are not making enough to meet anything beyond just the basic survival needs. So, okay, we're able to pay rent and we're able to pay our mortgage, but if something goes off along the way, like an unexpected medical bill or that unexpected financial emergency that I just mentioned, it could leave us kind of making a very difficult choice between paying for my utilities or fixing my car. And of course, these individuals are employed and sometimes they're working multiple jobs. That's the thing. Like, we have individuals who are not, even though they're employed and working 1.5 jobs, they're still not thriving financially. And my hope today is that I can share resources, my partners, my guest speakers can share resources that can help connect our community members to the resources and tools they need to thrive financially. I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself. Hello, everyone. Miladys Garcia is my name. I have the pleasure of serving as the Special Populations Program Supervisor for the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. I attended New York University, where I obtained degrees in early childhood special education, early childhood general education, and Spanish literature with a focus in Latin American studies. I've worked as an interpreter and translator. I've worked as an early intervention specialist. I'm an avid book reader, and I absolutely love the work that I do because I get to support financial education in underserved students and communities. I've been Alice. That's something I want you to know about me. I've been Alice, in my financial journey, I've had peaks and valleys. And the most recent valley was, the COVID-19 pandemic. It hit me hard. I was not earning as much as I had been previously because my hours got reduced, but my bills didn't care. I still had to pay my rent. I still had to pay my grocery bill. I still had to do all the things. And I started baking on the side, and that was like my little side hustle, and it helped me get through. I also was able to lean on some resources in my own community back in New York City, and it helped me, kind of stay afloat, but it was definitely a difficult time. And I know that again, it's a journey, not a destination. Financial well-being, we have a lot of ups and downs. But I'm proud to say that I was able to get through that and learned a lot about myself and a lot about the support available in my community. That's a little bit about me. Now, I want to introduce our two amazing guest speakers. These are some of the busiest people that I know. I am so very happy that they could lend their expertise and time to participating and joining me for this webinar today. I have the pleasure of introducing Ryan Davis, the Director of Community Impact from the Financial Empowerment Network, and Lyn Peters, the Washington Department Financial Institutions Director of Communications. Wait, there's more. Financial education. Wait, there's more. And outreach. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate you both, and you're going to be hearing from them in a little bit. Now, let me give you just a quick overview of our learning objectives and agenda. I'm going to be sharing a lot of data on ALICE. We're going to look at national data. We're going to look at local data, local to Washington, so that we can understand the key causes for ALICE and the barriers to financial instability that again, ALICE, asset limited, income constrained, employed households have. We're going to learn about different resources and tools to help our community community members that are struggling financially, face these financially difficult times. We're going to learn about the Financial Empowerment Network and the amazing work that they do to help low and moderate income individuals achieve financial stability. And last but not least, we are going to be learning about the Department of Financial Institutions, the amazing work they do to protect consumers during periods of economic hardship and support efforts to improve financial health. And of course, this webinar I am bringing to you on behalf of the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership. We are an education board administratively housed in the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. We were created to expand and improve financial education for Washington students in the K-12 space. Our approach is to provide training opportunities like this PD opportunity, this webinar that I'm bringing to you today. We also curate and review financial education instructional material, and those can be accessed through our website, FEPPP.org. Additionally, I have something really important I want to share. We have a financial education grant, and that's going away December 31st, 2025. So if you want to take advantage of that, the last day to apply is December 21st of this year. That grant is going away. Have your EGMS manager get in touch with us through our website, fepp.org. You can learn more about that. Please take advantage of that opportunity if you haven't already. Now, I have a bit of good news. I know we're going to get into the nitty-gritty and we're going to look at some not so pleasant facts, but I want to get us started with some fun facts. And this is something I'm really excited to share with you guys today. In the last year, we've been able to train about 166 teachers, and these have been in person as well as virtual trainings that our educators in Washington have participated in. And it's a pretty diverse group. We've been able to reach 103 different districts throughout Washington state. In turn, we've reached over 22,000 students. These are students that are now learning about financial education, gaining the skills they need to learn how to manage the resource of money. Thank you so much for all those clapping emojis. I'm so happy. This is a team effort. I am joined by so many of our colleagues. We have mentor educators, our fellow teachers that are part of FEPP and go to these districts and provide these trainings. These are educators that have been doing it for such a long time, teaching financial education for a long time, and they lend their time to all these other schools and districts who want to incorporate financial education into the curriculum, as well as my teammate, Amy Cleaver, who is fantastic. Some of you have already joined her webinars in the past. It really is an incredible team, and I am so proud of the work that we're doing. I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate that because our students are definitely getting the financial education that they need. And this is part of who we are. It's not only of course, getting our students the skills that they need to manage the resource of money. It's part of our vision and values to also support educators in their own financial journeys. Yes, we do that with professional development and instructional materials for the classroom, and we support educators that way, but we want to support their efforts to maintain financial stability outside of the classroom, and that's the purpose of this webinar today. I want to take a moment to just kind of center us and talk about our intentions. Talking about money can be difficult, right? We kind of tend to, kind of get a little stressed. I want to normalize those conversations, even when they are a little challenging, even when the topic is a little difficult, so that we can all understand the causes for the financial hardship that so many community members are experiencing and foster empathy and understanding, recognizing the real challenges that our ALICE educators and so many other people in our community are facing. I want to build supportive community. Part of being a public-private partnership is the opportunity to collaborate with amazing organizations that are doing amazing work and share all of the efforts that are being put together. I want to make sure that you guys know where to find the resources that you need, or for, if not for you, for someone else in your community. So I'm really excited about this opportunity. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because Linda's going to share her screen, and we're going to move on to our activity, which is a fun Mentimeter. Go ahead, Linda, you can share your screen now. we're going to be doing a Mentimeter activity. I like Menti because it's completely anonymous, and I feel like people really feel, comfortable in sharing in that space. And the question is, what is your definition of financial success? I find that this is an interesting question. Was when I was putting this activity together, I was thinking, if you ask me that 10 years ago, I would have a very different response from my response today. And it is, there are no wrong answers here. Is whatever your definition is, that is fair and it is valid. Thank you. So the answers are coming in. We have being able to pay bills and still be able to have money in savings. Absolutely. Not stressing about money. That's huge. Absolutely. Knowing where all your money's going. That's a big one. That's a big one. Yes. Not having to worry about money. Thank you so much for all of you that are participating in the Menti. We have one person in the chat being comfortable and affording the needs and some wants. Absolutely. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing those. Financial freedom. Absolutely. Not having to worry about covering housing, transportation. Yes. Save money to participate in hobbies. Absolutely. Like we were, mentioning, so many people are working multiple jobs, not because they want to put money aside, but because they cannot meet their financial obligations with just one job. So that's huge. Thank you so much. Thank you all for participating. That really helps me kind of see what frame of mind we're all in and what financial success means to all of us is pretty much what we're going to be covering, the importance of being able to set money aside for savings and for future goals. That's huge, right? I think we can go for the next question, Linda. We have one more question in this activity. Okay, what tools and resources do you need to achieve financial success? And this is getting a little bit more into like the depth of it. Okay, what we already know for most of us is being able to put money aside, not stress about money, not worry about it. But what tools and resources do we need? Education, that's huge. Thank you so much. Information, time, more money, absolutely. The skill to manage the resource of money and education. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you participating. We have one participant who can't enter the answer. Please go ahead and enter it in the chat. If you're having a hard time with the Menti, um, go ahead and enter your response in the chat. That's totally fine. Again, the question now is, what tools and resources do you need to achieve financial success? Soft and hard skills. Okay. Winning the lotto. Oh, if you do, please share. I love that response so much. I would love to win the lotto. That would take care of a few of my problems. But if I don't have the skills to manage that money, that might be more money, more problems. I don't want to be that cliche, right? Access to safe, affordable financial services and products. Absolutely. Information on a retirement plan. Thank you so much. These responses really help me also think about next webinar topics, what other things people are interested in hearing about. Understanding how finances work. Yes. Rather than being emotionally controlled by, yes, absolutely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Emotionally, yes, we don't want to be emotionally controlled by fear or any other, feeling of lack, especially when it comes to financial decision making. And we're going to go a little bit further into that as we continue. Thank you so much, all of you. I'm going to, for the sake of time, gonna go back and share my screen. Okay, let's see here. We're going to move through this slide, and I'm going to continue with the topic of positivity here. I have a bit of good news, right? So I'm a big data person and I love data. I love analyzing it, aggregating it. I just love it. One of the things that I like looking at is the Financial Health Network. They have so many resources, they have so much good information. And one of their initiatives is called the Financial Health Pulse. This is a research that was conducted from spring 2024 to spring of 2025. So very, very recent, which I appreciate because it's really, really relevant and timely. And they provide regular updates and actionable insights on consumer health in the United States. This is what they found. They interviewed about 7,000, a little over 7,000 heads of households. And what they found was promising. I think it's costs for some celebration here. People are spending less than they're making, which is fantastic. That
You're suddenly muted, Milady.
Miladys, you're on mute.
How about now? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so what I was saying was so many individuals are learning now the importance of spending less than your income in order to be able to meet all of your financial obligations and have the possibility of putting a little bit of money aside, right, at the end of each paycheck. Some households are, having no debt. There's an increase in households that have no debt. Bravo. Congratulations if you happen to be part of that group. But what I found most that the thing that gave me the most hope was the fact that we have seen a decline in financially vulnerable households, and that makes me very happy because there's still the racial wealth gap is still a thing, and there was a decline in Black households that were needing additional financial assistance. That makes me very, very happy. People are learning, all of these great habits. They're understanding the importance of managing the resource of money, and even with all of that, we have to recognize that everyone has a story, right? Some of us, we're doing everything we can and budgeting and tracking every expense within an inch of our lives. I'm a very frugal person, but when I had my last peak and I was Alice, even doing everything that I knew how to do was not enough, and I was getting into some financial hot water there, but it wasn't anything that I was doing wrong. I just didn't have the resources at the time. And I find that for Alice professionals, that's often the case, right? They're working and they're making a moderate or a good income, quote unquote, good income, but they're still struggling. And we're going to kind of go into a little bit of greater detail to the different reasons that have led to the situation being what it is. And for a lot of people, they're like one home repair away from not making ends meet. We love our fur babies, but gosh, are they expensive? Those vet bills are no joke. And you have two things happen within 1 month, and all of a sudden your little savings that you were putting together, $200-300, they're gone. Not only are they gone, they're still not enough. And now you're using your credit card to have to mitigate and face that extra cost. If you're not increasing your income and your debt is increasing, that's how we get into one of the ways that we get into financial hot water. So I want to keep the topic of Alice going, and I wanted to introduce you to the many faces of Alice. Please watch this very brief video. Everyone hear it okay? Thumbs up. Okay, so as you saw, Alice is so many of the people that we encounter every day in our lives, and there are so many causes for Alice. Alice is our educators. Alice is the people who bring us our meals when we go to restaurants. When we focus on educators, I was looking through the research, and I'm going to actually drop that in the chat. Give me one moment while I find that, because I think you guys would probably want to learn about that. It was really interesting. I found that in Washington specifically, about 15% of our middle school educators are Alice. When we look at other teaching adjacent professionals like our educator assistants or teaching assistants, 35% of them are Alice in Washington. That's a significant number of well-trained professionals that in Washington are making, again, moderate income, but are still struggling just to make ends meet. And there are many roads to Alice, and one of them is inflation. So we have data here that shows that from 2022 to 2023 in Seattle, wages went up by 4.5%. Hooray, that's awesome. Inflation went up by 5.4%. So we're always playing catch up. If our wage increase, excuse me, is not keeping up with the rate of inflation, we're always going to be facing these really, really hard financial choices unless, we inherit something and we get very lucky, but if it's just us and we don't have any generational wealth or any access to that in our, most underserved communities of color traditionally haven't had access to those resources, we're gonna continue to struggle. So let's look at the causes for financial hardship. And this is by no means an extensive or exhaustive list. There's so many more, but the increase in the cost of homes from 2020 to 2025 has been 43%. And that's staggering. I mean, it's very hard for people nowadays to be able to afford a home or even come up with that 20% down payment. Let's say you do come up with that 20% down payment. If your home is, and the average price of a home in Washington is about $650,000, of course, this does depend a lot on the county where you're looking to buy a home. For example, Spokane, average price of a home about 330, 350K. But if you're looking in Seattle, it's 850K. That's a big discrepancy. So on average, about $650,000 is a reasonable price for not a luxury home, just, your basic home. Um, if you put that 20% down payment down and then you have to face your monthly mortgage, that's probably going to be close to $3,000, if not more. Plus all the other things that you have to pay for when you're a homeowner, like homeowners insurance, etc. That's why more people are renting, right? So let's look at the cost of rent. Since 2020, the price of rent has increased by 35%. And still, I mean, it's better than, the price of homes, but it's still a lot of money and it eats up so much of a person's budget, right? Of their earnings just goes directly to the obligation of meeting for your housing expense. And the average rate rent for an apartment in Washington on average about 1750, right? If you go to Seattle, if you go to Tacoma, certain other counties way higher. Other counties might be a little lower, but on average about 1750. There's also, excuse me, not always, also been a significant increase in the cost of college, right? For a lot of us, student loans became reinstated again. That's another chunk of money that, goes from our budget to mitigating that cost. Used cars went up 9.5%. If you look at the cost of a new car, which I'm not going to do because I can't afford to buy a new car, but if you look at that, it's going to be over 10% increase. Groceries year over year have increased about 5%, 5.1%. So again, the point I'm trying to make here is this is nobody's fault. This isn't because we're mismanaging funds. This isn't because we want to live a Gucci lifestyle on a Gap budget. That is not the case here. We're just trying to make ends meet, but it's really hard. And I'm trying to put things in perspective on just how quickly we can go from, making ends meet to all of a sudden we're facing financial crisis. What does that look like? Long-term illness. It's one thing to have, I had to go to urgent care because I had this really bad head cold. That's a one-time expense. They give me some medicine. I'm on my way. When you have a long-term illness, that's a recurring bill, right? And that's again added to the other things that are eating away at our paycheck and our budget. When you have a separation, it doesn't have to be a legal one like a divorce. If you're with a partner and you're, jointly paying for things and that goes away, that also has an impact on you financially. Death of a loved one, whether it's a spouse or a parent or anyone else, and you're facing that now constraint, that can also lead to financial crisis. Losing your job, of course. And the reason why we're talking about this is because all of these things happening within close proximity to one another can lead to housing instability. Washington state has many wonderful things, right? We have a very high minimum wage, one of the highest in the nation. Um, our education system is not perfect, but is doing better than many other places. We still have a really bad problem with not providing enough housing for our community members. It is a huge problem. We have a very high homeless population, unhomed population. In order to mitigate some of that, why not provide support before we get to that point, right? And that's what I'm hoping to do here is share the resources and tools, connect individuals with services in their local counties. So when they're facing some of these hardships, they know where to go before it's too late and they're, facing possibly losing their home. So what are people doing, to supplement their income and kind of make ends meet? They're, having that side hustle. How many Americans are doing it? 44% of Americans. I was kind of surprised. I know a lot of people had a side hustle. I had no idea the number was this high. And again, these are people who are having additional, jobs, a full-time job plus a part-time job, not because they want that luxury vacation or they're trying to fund some expensive thing. No, it's just to stay afloat. And I think that's also something that we have to keep in mind. Like, this is out of necessity. This is because one job is not enough. And these are trained professionals, right? These are not our chronically unemployed individuals. These are trained professionals that have been working for a long time, but are still having a difficult time meeting all of their financial obligations. When we talk specifically about our educators, no surprise. Every educator that I knew, at least some of them were tutoring on the side or, doing some kind of thing directly related to education to supplement their income. Maybe it was coaching. Other people that I know that are not directly in education, and some educators are also involved in multi-generational living. That's been something that in my culture has always been a thing. I'm Hispanic, and that's something that we've kind of always done, but I've seen other cultures that were not so inclined to do that now participating in multi-generational living just to mitigate that big chunk of your paycheck that gets eaten away by housing. People are also taking in boarders, renting out rooms, getting really creative with additional housing units and whatnot, because we need to. It is not a want, this is more a thing of need. So I want to share some data pertaining specifically to what this looks like in Washington. We're going to be, talking again about some difficult information, not always so fun to hear, but important to understand kind of like the layers of the problem. We're going to be looking at what the lack of resources can do to a person's budget, and then understanding the financial struggle of public servants. All right, so let's just very briefly go through social services. That's what's usually, there for people who are struggling financially, not being able to meet their financial obligations. What it looks like is food stamps or SNAP, assistance to pay for your utility, housing. It was a program that became a thing as a result of the Great Depression in the 30s. It was created to protect disabled, older individuals, vulnerable populations, and in order to assess who qualified for these services, the federal poverty threshold was developed, right? So that they could determine who is eligible and who isn't. Now, fast forward to 2025. In America, a single individual has to be making $15,650 or less to be able to qualify for these services. Again, assistance to pay for food, assisting to pay for housing, etc. For a household of four, you cannot make more than $32,150 for a household of four in order to qualify for these services. Now, let's look specifically at Washington. An individual working 40 hours a week, earning minimum wage, standard minimum wage in Washington is 1666. A year, that individual working 40 hours a week at 1666 will be making $34,652.80. They don't qualify for anything, even if they have three dependents, right? Because of inflation, we know 34,000 is not going to cover your main necessities, your basic necessities, right? So right there, we have already a problem. Now let's look at Alice household specifically. We have about 900,000, close to 900,000 Alice households in Washington. These are families with children under 18 years old that are one crisis away from, really having to get very creative in the way that they're going to stay housed, right? So they could be facing financial instability if one or two things go wrong. We have over 300,000 families in Washington that are already accessing those social services. All put together, we have over 1 million families in Washington that are in a precarious financial situation. Again, very wealthy state, one of the highest minimum wages, and there are resources out there. So hopefully getting the word out there about what is available and how to access it can help mitigate this very real problem that we're facing as a society. Looking at what the top 5 expenses on a person's budget, this kind of breaks it down. I have it broken down into what is going to cost you per month and what is going to cost you per year. Our friend making that minimum wage working 40 hours is not going to they're not going to be anywhere close to meeting just the basic necessities. There's a lot of things missing from this list. I have just, again, like those musts, right? You need house, you need food, you need transportation, healthcare, and utilities. I don't have anything like cell phone. I don't have anything about Wi-Fi. I don't have anything about childcare, and we're still close to 50K, right? That we need just to make ends meet. Now let's look at what the number actually is for our Alice households. So according to our Alice research, and I'm going to put this research also in the chat, actually is the same one, so I don't need to do it. But according to the research, a family of four would need about $109,500 yearly annual income to meet the survival budget needs. So the basic needs, not putting any money aside for savings, so no financial cushion at all, right? That's a lot of money. And this is local to Washington. So just to recap, these are families that they're not below the federal poverty threshold. So they don't qualify for the traditional assistance that has been, in place for almost 100 years in America to provide that temporary relief. So that limits their access to what they can do and what resources and tools are at their disposal to kind of get by and mitigate all of these different financial crises that they may be facing. So they are experiencing this hardship, but there's no answer in sight to what can be done and how they can help and where to go to, right? Because the traditional assistance, it they don't qualify for it. Let's take a pause, okay? I want to kind of see how you guys are feeling. I know for many of you, because I see some familiar faces, this is not new information, but I know for some of you it is. And maybe you had some idea on some of these topics, but not quite understanding just how serious the situation was. In the chat, if you could tell me when you think about this current state of affairs as a society, what feelings come up. This is not, I'm not limiting you to Five Feelings. This is just a movie that I think is great and I love it. So I use this a lot. What feelings come up when you think of about the current state of affairs? You could be feeling multiple things at the same time. Sadness, all of them but joy. We have some emojis that also kind of reflect that. Yeah. And that's fair, right? Like, let's hold space for that conversation. This is not fun. This is very sad for people who, you get told you go to school, you graduate, you get your degree. You shouldn't be in this situation. You should be able to make an income where you should be able to, like one of you said in our mentee activity, meet your needs and some of your wants. Like that's the goal. That was the whole point of getting specialized training. Curiosity. I like that. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all of you participating in the chat. One of the things that as I was putting this webinar together and I was thinking of this question myself, okay, what am I feeling? This isn't new for me. The word that kept coming up was scarcity. That was the feeling and that was the sentiment that I was having is just there's just not enough. Like what are you going to do? You already know all the positive habits, you already know how to budget, but you still don't have enough. And the impact of scarcity, I mean, it's very real and it impacts our financial decision making, but it impacts other aspects of our lives. For the sake of this conversation, I'm going to focus on how it impacts our financial decision making. This term, this was actually Lyn Peters, who's going to be speaking very briefly here. She gave me the term amygdala hijack. She didn't coin it, but she made me aware that it's a thing. And I actually looked it up and I have it here. There's actual research that shows that when you're going through periods of high stress for whatever reason, because you're, going through a financially difficult time or whatever the case may be, your mental capacities decrease by 10 to 15 IQ points. You lose 10 to 15 IQ points. I was like, wow, there's a number to it now. We know. So what ends up happening when you're trying to manage your finances and, put everything together and be an adult, right? You feel rushed, you feel overwhelmed, you're so stressed, you know you don't have enough, and you start kind of rushing through it. You start making some risky decisions. You may not read through all the emails before you click on a link. You may not take your time to think before you click on something that something is telling you is from your bank, but your bank never connected with you through, email before. You don't think about these things, right? That logic kind of goes out the window a little bit. And what's more, we start tunneling. We start focusing on, I have to make sure my kids have a place to live. So I need to pay rent. I need to pay my mortgage. And we forget about our utilities. We forget about the credit card bill. It starts adding up. I always tell people it is very expensive to be broke. Very expensive because once you start kind of forgetting about those things, they incur interest, you end up paying more, your credit score, drops. It's like a snowball effect, right? The solution, according to Senhil Mulay Nathan and Elder Shafir, the authors of a really good book called Scarcity, is to build slack into your budget or to whatever situation you're facing. That's awesome. How do you do that when you're in such financial constraint? Ideally, you would be building slack by having your financial cushion, your emergency savings, and whatnot. So, what does it look like when you don't have access to that? Well, this brings us to the hope, the sunshine part of our presentation, right? The resources that are available, because we do have wonderful resources available in Washington. We have support in Washington, and we're going to hear from Ryan Davis and Lyn Peters very briefly. But first, I want to play this video for you guys about Washington 211. This is an organization that's helping Washingtonians, connecting them to services in their local counties, and there is no income threshold. You can access these resources and services and you don't have to be making less than 15,000, less than 34,000 or 32,000. You can access it, no income threshold necessary. All right. Everyone hear it okay?
If you have an emergency, medical or otherwise, you know you can call 911 and someone will answer your immediate call for help. But what if you need help that doesn't require emergency responders? Maybe you need help finding a place to live, getting a job, navigating medical or mental health services, or even something as specific as help with a traumatic brain injury. Who do you call for help then? Here in Washington State, help starts with a call to 211. Specialists at 211 are trained to answer your call, email, or text and listen to your individual concerns and needs. They can provide you with guidance via a referral or additional supportive information to help you access social or community service programs. 211 or WA211.org connects callers at no cost to critical health and human services, helping connect you to community resources statewide. Information and referral services are designed to ensure that when you are looking for help, there are no wrong doors.
Oh, excuse me.
Or dead ends. You'll be immediately connected to someone with the information and resources that can assist you in connecting the dots and finding the right support. Think of this information and referral system as a good friend with all the best connections, ones that have been reviewed to give you the best assistance. What types of things can 211 and our Washington State community programs help you with? These are just a few of the reasons why you might call 211. With more than 32,000 community resources at their fingertips, this information and referral system is built to connect you with the help you need. Whatever you might be going through, assistance is always available. Text 211-WAOD to 898-211. Call 211 or visit WA211.org.
Okay, and I'm going to drop the link for that in the chat right now. Give me just 1 second. So if you want to learn more about this resource, it is there. And there's more. I'm hoping that we have started to move from scarcity and sadness to a little bit of hope. There's another resource that I'm excited to share with you all. Again, thank you to all of you participating in the chat, sharing your stories. I really, really appreciate it so much. And I also want to tell you about United Way for the Pacific Northwest. They are a wonderful organization, and they are providing support not only in Washington, but also in Idaho and Oregon. Again, the resources that they provide, the assistance that they provide, you don't need an income threshold for. So you're not limited by a moderate or higher income than the federal poverty level, which is extremely low and unrealistic. They have financial opportunity centers throughout Washington, and they are able to provide financial coaching, financial counseling, assistance with debt relief programs, and different things to help people pay for the utility bills and stay house. A big initiative is preventing people from losing their homes. This is another fantastic resource, and I am going to drop that in the chat as well. Give me just 1 moment. Please share with anyone in your community who you think would benefit. And now it is time for me to take a back seat because, as I said before, I have the distinct pleasure of being joined today by one of our guest speakers, Ryan Davis from the Financial Empowerment Network. Thank you so much for being here again, Ryan. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Oh, apologies. I'm just warming up my vocal cords after listening to Milady give all of the wonderful background and baseline. For the, I don't know, 4th or 5th time, my name is Ryan Davis. I use he, him, or el pronouns. I am the Director of Community Impact with the Financial Empowerment Network, which is really a fancy way of saying that my job is to make friends, specifically with people who make decisions about how our financial system in Washington affects the average consumer, but also making friends between people who are helping our community to make sure that the awesome work and the good knowledge that might be in one person's corner is shared with other folks who are facing similar challenges or similar roadblocks. My job today is to sort of give a baseline of some of the work that is moving us in the right direction. But before we get there, I do want to spend a little bit of time in the chat. Would people put a $ in the chat if you've had a conversation about money with someone? Hey, looky there. Okay, we're going to change gears a little bit. I would love you to put an F in the chat if that person was a friend or a family member. You could also put a C in the chat if that was a client or a customer. You could put an S in the chat if that was a student. Yes, absolutely. So I just wanted to sit in this. We all have money conversations. Now, I would love people to put a T in the chat if you've received formal training on how to talk about money. I see a few, and I know some of these names. That feels good. I see much fewer T's than other letters, though. So this is sort of where we live as the Financial Empowerment Network. Next slide, please. I'm going to let everybody read our mission statement and our vision, but the idea is that people should be able to have money conversations, either with friends and family members who are able to access resources, or failing a strong social network, or just feeling weird about talking about money with your family, a network of professionals. Next slide, because this is sort of the fun piece. FEN is a staff of 4, but we're a team of hundreds. Our job is as sort of the networks, the connectors, the collaboration spaces, in order to make the things that make Washington a viable place to live for all of our communities, and also a place where we want to see all of our neighbors thrive. Not all of that is sexy. Not all of that is big public in front work. Some of it is behind the scenes. And so our job is to make sure that the people who are making some of these decisions are able to communicate and regularly connect with the people who are providing the last mile of service delivery, or who are closest to the challenge facing our communities, the economic challenge facing our communities. Before we move on, there is a phrase that I've been sort of holding on to for the last couple of years, and I want to level set, and that is that it is morally dubious, but also feels not as effective to provide budget classes or 10 tips to get out of debt when the primary challenge is that people aren't making enough. As Milady was saying, Vivian, I see your raised hand. There will be a question and answer session. Please use the chat as well. There are lots of things that I'm going to tell you about ways that each individual person can manage the water that's in their jug more effectively. But the true way to end a drought is more water, not more cups. So that's where we're going to end our time together. I also meant to start a timer when I started talking, so Lynn, forgive me, we're a couple minutes over.
You're good. You're good.
Wonderful. Okay, next slide, please. So how do we do this with a staff of 4 and team of hundreds? We have 3 big initiatives. The first of our initiatives is that financial empowerment, money conversations should not be the province of bankers. Everybody has money conversations. We just proved this. So my colleague Abby Oakart is a fantastic human being, but more than that, is excellent at building up programs into spaces where money conversations are comfortable. We help specific organizations. Not yet. Go back. We helped provide some financial education workshops, professional development, helping organizations stand up a financial education program if that is reasonable with the capacity that's available. We also host a community of practice for anyone who has money conversations with people in your life and you would like to get better at it. Please consider joining the Washington Financial Coaching Network. It is a space to get better at talking about money. We also offer technical assistance, training for staff if the financial education or financial empowerment is something that you as a team want to get better at, Abby has a great travel budget. She's made it all over the state. And last but certainly not least in this category is our workshops and recording that are available forever and always on our website. All of them are recorded for free. You can find us on YouTube to access them more directly, but that link will tell you or take you to all past and present workshops. Okay, so now the next one is the Asset Building Coalition of Washington. We know that it doesn't make a whole lot of difference if people in Olympia pass a law that says that there is now a working family's tax credit. If people in Walla Walla don't know about it or don't have a tax prep person. Our role is to build up and support the local energy, the people who want to make a difference around financial empowerment, and make sure that they know each other, that the housing counselor down the road knows that the bank is not a scary place, and that when there are money questions, we can ask our local banker. This is also where we sort of pull those stories of all of the people who are being or that are ALICE or otherwise living with limited resources. That story is often difficult to reach the decision makers in Olympia. So we try and bridge that gap when we can. The last big piece of this that I'll touch on more later is our work around foreclosure prevention and homeownership assistance. We don't like people to lose their homes. I'll get more into that later. Okay, third big bucket is Bank On Washington. We just completed our annual event in Tacoma 3 weeks ago, sometime in the recent past, where we gathered 165 financial institution, community-based organization, government decision makers, and basically told them that life is hard. Y'all have resources, do your part. In nicer language over 2 days, and it was you know, bankers are fun people, is I guess the tagline there. But Bank On is a national initiative that we in Washington have taken and are one of the leaders nationally. The idea being that access to safe, affordable, and for lack of a better word, traditional financial products and services should not be hard to find. And more than that, it should not feel weird to ask your banker questions about your money. These are things that should feel regular. Or ask them about different resources that you can access. These should not be difficult things. I'll dive into all of these and more as we move on to the next slide, please. Okay. So if you go to that link that I posted sometime recently, fenwa.org/events, or scan this QR code, you can see at least 3.5 years of free workshops. We do about one a month. These are the ones that we've done in 2025. These workshops are primarily for people who have money conversations. I would reckon that the teachers in this space might have had some of these conversations with students and or parents of students. Going into emotionally charged conversations without resources or without any preparation is hard. It is a big lift, and hopefully these resources are a first step. Is there anything else that I'm supposed to say about these? This is Abby Oakhart's domain. These are absolutely amazing resources. Most of them are 90 minutes, and they are all available on our YouTube channel for free and for always. Our upcoming workshop, like I said, we keep doing this for free and for always. You can sign up. Actually, I have this handy dandy link for everybody. Right before Halloween, if you've always wanted to dress up like a small business owner, please consider checking out this workshop in partnership with the Washington State Micro Enterprise Association. I wanted to get that title correctly. Like Milady said, almost half of our friends and neighbors are doing some sort of side hustle, whether that's a micro entrepreneurial, just getting started, all the way up to, I think I need an employee. Business is hard, and starting a business on accident is harder. So this is hopefully a first step towards building a business on purpose. Next slide, please. I already talked about the Financial Coaching Network. A space of, there are 200 people on the email list, 50 to 60 people show up every month. Miladys is a co-chair, along with Daniel John Baptiste of Beneficial State Bank. The idea being that generally, people who have money conversations professionally are few and far between across our state. And so if that is a skill that you would like to build, or would just like a community of commiserators when life is hard for money conversations, I can post that one more time. The Financial Coaching Network is an excellent group of kind-hearted and wonderful individuals. Okay, the last big thing in our repertoire is resources. I don't have time to go through all of the pieces of information that are available on our resources page, but I would recommend everybody bookmark that page, because the next time somebody asks a question about money, I bet it fits into one of the, I think there are 19, almost 20 categories of money-related questions on our page. These are not intended as the be-all, end-all of money. I don't think a resource could ever exist. But these are good places to start. Good resources. There used to be more federal resources. Now there are a lot of state resources of places to start exploring what your money picture looks like. I will remind everybody that there are as many different ways to manage our money as there are people who manage money. And just because that it isn't the traditional way that has been taught in financial education books for decades, if it works, then fantastic. Finding the pieces of the puzzle that lead you towards a healthy financial picture, that's all we can ask for. And I appreciate whoever put it in the chat in our Menti earlier, is the ability to make decisions, and someone else put connections, or the people that you talk to. 100%. Having more people to talk to about money makes things better. Oh boy. If you are someone who is new to the financial conversation, new to money, or are convinced that there is a gap missing in your community, I would encourage folks to reach out to your local asset building coalition. Asset building coalitions are kind of like local versions of what we do at the state level. Find awesome programs, support awesome coalitions, support awesome collaborative projects, and make sure that the people who are working towards the financial health of our communities are rowing in the same direction, if nothing else. A caveat here, asset building coalitions have, for the last 2 decades, had been funded by the state budget. I don't have to tell this room that the state budget is not fantastic at this point in time. And so most of these coalitions are in a smaller version of what they would like to be. So the link's available at fenwa.org/WABC. I don't have that one available on my copy paste list, but I'll include it in here. List the last point of contact, and if that point of contact isn't available, or for whatever reason you don't see your county or area listed here, please reach out. We, as the Washington State Coalition, hold sort of any gaps that exist. I think that is our next. So home ownership is it is the most well-trodden pathway to long-term financial health. We know that housing is can feel like a pipe dream. And like Lyn posted in the chat, there are lots of homebuyer resources around the state. 2 years ago was a legislative boom in sort of funding for housing projects. There are more than you might think. Please check out our housing tab. We are also one of the lead organizations in the foreclosure prevention work. Our foreclosure prevention team is co-chaired by Linda Taylor of the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle and Tom McKay of the Northwest Justice Project. There are a lot of resources to help people keep their homes, to avoid foreclosure. I would encourage, I know that there are people in the chat who are connected to some of the homeownership. If I don't get to it, we recently redid the Washington State foreclosure prevention video. We are in the process of working through the foreclosure prevention guide, the 100+ page How to Avoid Foreclosure in Washington guide. Like I said, we are not the people who do or who are your home ownership counselor, but we hold some of the in-between spaces, the gaps that exist, and trying to update things that haven't been updated in 20+ years to make sure that all of our systems are serving the people who are often most forgotten or overlooked or hardest to access. Which brings us nicely to Bank on Washington. Both the Asset Building Coalition work and Bank on Washington are what I like to call systems level changes. It should not be the role nor responsibility for every person in Washington to have an encyclopedia knowledge of all of the scams that have ever happened, of all of the different ways that a bank might structure a checking account to make things work for or against different financial pictures. All of the things that go into the choices that we get to make for living in the economic system of Washington are purposeful decisions made by somebody. And so Bank on Washington, as I mentioned earlier, is the Washington State arm side of Bank on, the national initiative, which is primarily to encourage and sometimes nudge financial institutions to create checking accounts that are safe, affordable, and accessible for people who are experiencing poverty or otherwise don't want to pay to have their money stored. Soapbox. Okay. Part of this is building nationally or getting financial institutions to certify one of their accounts based on our national account standards, which are, I will post them. I believe they might be available in the slide deck later. But in any case, thank you. This is the high level overview. The high level overview is that if someone does not have a bank account, they are likely to be spending up to $40,000. Where's my stat here? Where's my stat? I pulled it up. An average person who's unbanked will spend $40,000 across their lifetime simply accessing their money. I am positive that the folks in this room have had some experience of receiving a paper check, and then if you don't have a bank account, going to find somewhere to turn that paper check into dollar bills, and then if you have to pay your utilities, going to find somewhere to turn those dollar bills into a prepaid debit card or a cashier's check or any of the other ways that the creative people who are making ends meet find a way to traverse that path. If there's a phrase that comes dangerously close to my soapbox, that we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Well, if you're spending 30 minutes in the check cashing line and another 10 minutes at the payday loan place and all of the alternative ways to access your finances if you're not connected with a financial institution, you do not have the same 24 hours a day as pick your 1% person that doesn't make you. In any case, here in Washington, we take that a step further, as I mentioned earlier. Bank on Washington we believe that the 19 accounts in Washington that meet our national account standards are wonderful. We are so happy that we have financial institution partners who are not only putting their money where their mouth is, they're putting their volunteer hours in all of the work that I've been talking about for the last, almost 20 minutes. All of that work has steering committees, has different ways that our community inputs gives input into the things that we do. I had a train of thought and it vanished. The idea that a bank or a credit union is a scary, intimidating place is very common. And we know that financial institutions are doing their best, or at least there are people in financial institutions who are doing their best to be good community members. That means that they have knowledge that they're trying to share. That means that they have access to resources or access to guidance that many of us did not receive training on. So I will add that to the background list of things to think about when managing the scarcity of our financial picture. If a financial institution is in your corner, you at least have someone to ask questions, and they're getting better at being good thought partners in processing what to do next. I'm sure Lyn Peters of the Department of Financial Institutions doesn't have any thoughts on that process. But please scan this QR code if you are interested in either more information about any of the things that I've been talking about, or if you have an idea of things, go back one more. People haven't finished scanning the QR code. Or if you have ideas of gaps that exist in Washington and you're not entirely sure who's working on them, let me know. Reach out. I'm going to put my email in the chat as well. I am a big open front door. I am unlikely to have all of the answers about everything, but I could probably point you in the direction of somebody who has more answers. The last piece that I will put in front of this group, now you can move on to our newsletter, is to please join our newsletter. We are about 3 months away from the legislative process in Washington starting up again. One of the things that FEN does is we keep an eye out on some of the financial or some of the policies that our state electeds are noodling on, and we encourage folks to share with your elected officials how some of the policies that have been in the last couple of years, or that people are considering, or just how our current economy is impacting you. Our elected officials get paid to listen to you. That is their job, in no uncertain terms. I'm going to give everybody a quick 30-second how to talk to a legislator. My name is, I live in the 40th district. I care about housing because I'm a homeowner. Expand as you have time, shrink if you have less time. But please, we encourage folks to be engaged citizens. We encourage folks to talk to the people in your district, in your work, both to share stories about what is hard, but also maybe ideate about what could be better. Each of these topic areas is way more complicated than a 20-minute talk. So please connect with us. benwad.org, bankonwashington.org. We're on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube. That's my email. I'll put it in the chat as well. I'm going to double check that I shared all of the links that I said I was going to. Oh, and I missed one. Here are all the slides that I just went through at breakneck pace with some of the links linked. And I think Milady will also send out these slides as well.
And
Absolutely.
for anyone who hasn't met Ryan and hasn't worked with Ryan, he's an amazing connector and partner. He truly is.
He's wonderful. That's the reason why he's speaking to this webinar today, because he has all the connections to everything. Thank you so much, Ryan. Does anyone, I want to pause to give people time if they have questions for Ryan Davis before we move on to our next speaker, who I want to honor her time as well, because she has some amazing information that I want to give her time to share. Questions for Ryan going once. Questions for Ryan going twice. I have one for you, Ryan, before I move on to Lyn. What's your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job. Oh my goodness, you even prompted me about this when we started, and I blanked on actually working on an answer. My favorite part of my job is that I get to meet awesome people who give a damn. My favorite part of my job is that I don't have to look very hard for someone who's willing to put their hand up and say, yeah, that sucks, I'm going to do something about it. My favorite part of my job is that I get to kind of stick it to some people who have made some not great decisions for their electorate. And every once in a while, I get the awesome little sunshine that Lyn Peters likes me.
Many people like you, but
Many
I get
people
it.
like you.
She is awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Ryan. Now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Lyn Peters. She also need no introduction because she's pretty well known. Lyn, take it away.
So Ryan, first off, put your email address in the chat. That's been requested. There you go. Awesome. So I'm Lyn Peters, Director of Communications, Financial Education and Outreach for the Washington State Department of Financial Institutions. I swear that fits on a business card. I have proof. It just means I wear a lot of hats and I get to do a lot of different things, which means I'm never bored, which is why I've been here. Get this, I have celebrated my 18th work anniversary. Never thought that would ever happen. I started this job thinking I'd be here for a year. Surprise. So DFI, most folks have not heard about us. They don't know anything about us. They don't know what we do unless you are a bank or credit union. Go back to the first slide.
Sure.
So we license and regulate the financial services industry. What is that? That's banks, credit unions, payday lenders, mortgage brokers, loan originators, financial advisors, financial planners, some crypto, depending on if it's acting as a money transmitter or an investment product. So if it has to do with money, we probably license and regulate it somehow, right? And then we protect the people of Washington by doing examinations of those financial services to make sure they're adhering to federal and state laws, and then taking corrective action when they don't adhere to those federal and state laws. Some of those funds are used to provide financial education grants for entities like I see Donna here, Hope Lake entity and FEN, and FEPPP. We used to work with FEPPP on that, but they found their own funding. So let me back up. We were tasked with doing financial education in 2000. I can't remember if it was 8 or 9. Senate Bill 52's. Nope, that wasn't it. Anyways, back 2008 or 9, and we were told do all education, all topics, whole state, all the ages, and it was me and Jeremy, the web guy. So we kind of went, holy smokes, this is huge. How do we do this? And a little part of that legislation said we could do grants. So we also take some of those fees and fine from our licensees, and we put them into financial education grants for the nonprofits of our state who do this work already. This past year, we had 49 applicants, which was the most we've ever had. We were able to grant 23 of those. So we're helping the folks who are doing the work do more of the work and looking for ways that we can partner with them. I recognize the power of partnership. You know, FEN, this is what you do. That's really what we do here at DFI. We are the one-off presenters. Teachers, we will come to your classroom when you need to sit in the back of the room and grade papers. That's what we're really good at. We are the one-offs. We will come in and we will talk about identity theft and credit and debt and things like that. But we are not the in-depth, overarching financial education, financial empowerment group. We are the one-offs, but we will support what you do. We do provide that financial education both in English and Spanish, though not for the next 2 weeks because Nathan is off in another country. So, and I don't speak Spanish, nothing I can speak in the classroom anyways. We provide the information online as well. So it is on the, I just dropped it in there. It's a financial education. It's a link to all the different things that we do. You can also request a presentation. We work with organizations like FEPPP, FEN, Consumer Protection Washington, HopeLink, all those kinds of organizations to do what we do. Okay, next slide. So what we're doing now primarily, and I do a lot of it, is fraud prevention, is talking to people about, okay, what little money we have, we want to hang on to it. I don't want scammers to get it. And a little secret, everybody, they are out to get us, every single one of us. They're out to get every single one of us. Now, the weird thing is, young people, our millennials who have these things in their hands all the time, they are falling for scams a lot faster than we are. They're losing less money than our seniors who have retired, but that's only because they don't have as much money. They aren't willing to make an investment. What we learned, especially during, well, the last recession, and we're coming up on another one, right? We see people kind of scrambling. How am I going to make my retirement last longer? They're willing to take that gamble to make their retirement go further. So they're willing to take that gamble and say, invest, and I use air quotes on that, my $400,000 into a crypto platform that really isn't a crypto platform. It's actually a link to put something into somebody's crypto wallet and then they're gone. So we are doing a ton of outreach right now about fraud prevention. I refer to the FTC as a great resource of information about sort of what the stats look like. They're not pretty. When we did our 10B program, we did a whole statewide ad campaign. We have a whole website built up on it. We need to change the numbers now because we're at $12.8 billion, B with a B. And that is, here's the real kicker, only about 15% of people who are victimized actually file a report. That 12.8 billion is only the reports. So there's a lot more fraud happening out there. The information that I got from the Pew Research said that 1 in 5 Americans with lower incomes, which is 22% of people, say they don't know how much or nothing at all about their personal finances, which is higher than those who have upper incomes, right? And somebody from OSPI had posted, people aren't having conversations about money. And I said, yeah, and that's how you end up with me. I was 40 years old when I started working at DFI. I didn't know what a credit score was. I didn't know what a credit report was. I didn't know what debt to income ratio was. I'd never done a budget. I was 40 years old because my family, who made all the right decisions, just assumed I was getting it in school. And I wasn't getting it in school, right? So now this has become a passion of mine. I am that jerk who will talk about this in the grocery store line, in the U.S. Postal Service line. And when I hear somebody say, oh, I think my identity was stolen, I've got RFID sleeves to hand out. I've got the FTC.gov handouts to hand out to people to say, please, please, please file a report. Come talk to us. Give me a call. Let's walk you through this. In the slide deck that I sent to Milady, I included some links to a couple of pieces that you as teachers might be interested in, especially the 60 Minutes piece where they talk to actual victims. These are not people with dementia. These are not people who, have an IQ of 45. These are retired scientists, bookkeepers, accountants. These are smart people who are being victimized by scammers, and it's because they're really good at what they do. We talked about the amygdala hijack, and what that is they get you in this heightened, oh my gosh, I've got to take care of this, and your amygdala takes over and says, I'll do whatever I have to do to make this go away and make me feel better, even though it's staying on the phone with a scammer to go take out $9,000, to go down to a Bitcoin ATM and shove it in there to somebody else's crypto wallet. This is not what we want people doing. So I spend a lot of time talking to people about not to do that. And my favorite movie right now is The Beekeeper. And if you haven't seen it, I will warn you ahead of time. It's a very, very violent movie, but it's what I want all of these scammers. I want every scammer to have that happen to them. Plus, I'll watch anything with Jason Statham in it. But I also included a link to the scene of the scam. And I will tell you that is exactly how things happen. There's some variations once she's clicked on the link and called the phone number, but that is how it happens. So the 10B, yep, I'm hustling. So let me put this one in here. The 10B program will walk you through how to identify, how to prevent, how to report a fraud. And we have a lot of different links in there. This sheet here was created by FINRA because the number one reason people are not reporting scams and fraud is shame and guilt. And I will tell every person who's on this call, don't be ashamed, don't be guilty, don't feel like you have to hide this. Be mad as hell. Turn these people in and let's go after them. Let's make it stop. And then go ahead and go to the last slide. So I will tell you, one of the reasons I'm really passionate about this is I've seen people be victimized and end up homeless. And there, but the fortune or luck, go I. I've been Alice. I've been unhoused 3 times in my life. It happens. I'm a state employee. I'm looking at potential furloughs. I've had expensive emergencies. Talk to me about a $21,000 vet bill, people. I've had health issues. I've had car accidents. We've looked at downsizing. It can be something so simple that comes out of left field that can make your world go turn upside down. I know very few people who actually have 3 or 6 months of saving of a salary saved up who can live for that long. That's why COVID was so difficult for people, right? Mm-hmm. So my goal is to provide connections to people like Ryan and Donna and Milady to make sure that people are getting the resources they need, 211, to not be Alice, and to help teachers have the courage and strength to talk to these students about how they can move forward and the resources they can access in addition to education. I'm a former reporter, so knowledge is power and power belongs to people. I'll leave it at that because I know we're done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. Thank you, Lyn. Anyone have any questions for Lyn? Before we continue, we want to be respectful of your time. We have to wrap things up at 5:30, but I do want to leave some time for questions. I see a question in the chat. What about the scams that fall within the rule of law? Ooh.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. So I would love to talk to you offline about this. Let me put my email in here. Well, you've got it up there,
Lyn.
but
yeah. Go ahead and put it in the chat. That never hurts. That is a fantastic question.
It is really difficult to address a lot of these. And even the ones where you know this is predatory, you know this should be against the law because they've taken the money out themselves and stuck it into a crypto kiosk. They are the ones who are being blamed. It is very rare that we can catch these scammers and these fraudsters. Nathan, let me get Nathan's. We want to fill it. He's got 2 weeks. Ryan, let's give him a break. But you can use a presentation request. That all goes to the same thing. If you use let me go find that link. That is, and he's a great presenter, by the way. He is oh, this is a really long link. Hopefully it changes it to that weird little simplified link. Okay. Hopefully that works for everybody. It's not it's a very long form. It's a Microsoft form. Yes, he speaks in Spanish. That's what he's doing right now. Actually, he's probably speaking Albanian right now. He's visiting his parents. This is why we hired Nathan. Not only is he amazing and wonderful and a fantastic presenter, he speaks Albanian, Norwegian, Spanish, and English. So lots of people get to talk to him.
He makes me look like I'm a slacker, honestly, because I'm here with my English and my Spanish, like I'm a big deal, and this guy speaks 4 or 5 languages, and I'm like, okay, I bow.
Well, and he also makes us look bad because, well, I always feel like an Oompa Loompa standing next to him because he's 6'7". He stands out in a crowd.
He does indeed. He does indeed. Thank you so much. And thank you for that participant who asked that question. That was a fantastic question for Lyn. And that's what we do. That's what I wanted to do for this webinar is show you the power of partnerships and extend that into your community. Connect you to resources that are in your community, in the counties that you live. Share the amazing work that our partners like FEN and BankOn and DFI are doing to meet the needs of our communities so that all individuals can know where to go when these financial emergencies hit, where the resources are, what tools they can access so that that amygdala hijack doesn't take over and we can still think logically and keep the stress levels within some type of reason. It takes a village to do this, right? It is a lot of work, as Ryan and Lyn so eloquently said, to try to make a budget even though it's small, stretch beyond its capacities and connect to all the different things that can help us meet all our obligations. It takes a village. We know who part of our village is. It's you educators. It's all of you in the community, those who are joining that are financial coaches and counselors. Thank you so much for the work that you do because it makes a difference. We want to thank our government agencies like DFI, other financial institutions like Ryan mentioned that are providing those low barrier accounts to our underdocumented individuals recently arrived that are trying to figure out our financial system. Thank you so much. Or nonprofit organizations, legislators also that are also trying to do their best to support our communities. Other K-12 programs, I saw someone in the chat that's working with our foster and homeless youth. Thank you for the work that you do. I hope you get more information that you have gotten, more information to help meet the needs, your own needs, but also the needs of individuals that you're working with and trying to support. We're still FEPP. We still have our amazing work website. It's fepp.org. We have curated an extensive list of financial education instructional materials for our students, for our educators, but also for adults. They're available in multiple languages, mainly Spanish. We have recordings of past webinars. You can access those through our YouTube channel. This one will be available, what would we say, Linda, like within the next week or two? More or less ballpark, within a week or two, you will be able to access this webinar through our website and through our YouTube channel. We have resources for special populations. Again, all of you that are supporting our most underserved students and communities, thank you so much for the work that you do. We are doing a lot of hard work too to help take a lot of the lift out in terms of the resources that we've identified. You don't have to wonder if they're good. We have vetted them. They are of the highest quality. So please check those out. I also want to tell you about our upcoming webinars. This is part 1 of a 3 webinar series. Our next one is going to be October 27th from 4:30 to from 4 to 5:30. I'm going to be joined by an amazing woman from the St. Louis Federal Reserve. She is a senior economic education specialist. I know, I'm super excited. An incredible presenter. She's going to be sharing some amazing financial education resources and an incredible website that they have. The last webinar is December 1st from 4 to 5:30. We'll be joined by representatives from Numerica Credit Union as well as BECU. They have amazing resources that they can share with our educators and classroom support. They are ready to go with those. Guys, I want to be respectful of your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much to our presenters, Ryan and Lyn, to you participants for taking time out of your busy schedules, many of you educators wrapping up your day and joining us. I am so very grateful. If any of you have questions, I am able to hang out for a bit and answer any questions you may have. But thank you so much for participating, for your responses. It's been a treat. Thank you so much. This is a fun part of my job. If you ask me what my favorite part is, this is definitely up there. Getting to connect people and share information is one of them.